Hello, thank you so much for coming to the Sashiko Live Streaming. This is Atsushi. Let me check the audio first. I upgraded this one, so let's see. Yep, should be good. Alright. So, sorry, this is the Sashiko Live Streaming where I stitch Sashiko while talking about Sashiko culture. This is not a lecture, this is not a webinar, this is not a tutorial, so I'm not gonna teach something specific here. Instead, I will talk about something related to Sashiko. Here I brought the topic today. But the point is that I'm gonna be stitching, so if you could bring some of the stuff for you to stitch, that'd be great. It is time for us to stitch, not, fight or something. So I just want to make a place for us to be. Alright, hello. Thank you so much for coming. I brought a topic today about the ask and guess culture. I will talk about it while I get on the rhythm. Okay, I will switch the camera. My throat is a little weird. It's all good, right? I hope you are having a good Thursday night. Let me know if the audio is not good. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look at the domestic course, but it seems to be a good one. I finally had a chance to take a look at all the videos. I was not allowed to watch those videos in advance to the release, so I kind of had to watch everything after the release, and it seems to be good. So if you are new to Sashiko, that's my recommendation to start. It does not require that much commitment. It depends on where you live and it depends on when, but it's not really that costly to start watching them, and I think it is a good idea to start there instead of like random books or random website. Well, my website is one of those, but I'm glad that I receive many positive comments. Some of them are like life-changing, or they once said that they changed the course totally changed their understanding of Sashiko. So I am glad that I am delivering the message I want. And if you remember here, well, you might be remembering, but my whole purpose for this year is to deliver the message. So I hope that it's going well. And not a hope, I am happy that it's going well. So, yep. I would like to talk about guess culture, ask culture and guess culture. It's not really a new concept. If we Google, there are a lot of articles about it, and it's really not something to be shocked, but I think in order to understand what Sashiko is, we really have to understand the guess culture side. So the dualism of ask and guess are already outside of the Japanese thinking, but when I say that one has to read between the lines or read what is not written, the closest explanation I can do is guess culture. So many of the culture I talk about here while stitching is based on the guessing what is not written, what is not told, what is not communicated. And that's another reason that we cannot find many good resources or documents, because it was not recommended to articulate some of the fact. Plus, that was the Sashiko itself was the stitching practice with a lot of, I don't want to say shame per se, but shameful thing. It's guess, not a guest, it's guess. Ask and guess. So it is ask and guess. No T. And I think Western culture is more toward to ask. I mean, I'm not gonna say everybody's here is based on the ask culture. I don't know anybody who has both sides simultaneously. So I guess every one of us here kind of lean to either ask or guess. Lily-san, I'm looking for a book about the ask culture and guess culture. Very interesting. It is really interesting. It explains a lot why Japanese are like that. Again, in my understanding, the Japanese culture cannot be explained by this comparison ask and guess, because it exists outside of the dualism already. So by comparing the ask and guess, we are kind of talking about outside of the Japanese culture. However, it is probably the closest explanation I can do. And in order to fully understand, you don't have to fully understand to enjoy Sashiko, but in order to fully understand Sashiko, or in order to teach what Sashiko really is, one has to understand, at least try to understand, the guess culture a little bit. Guess. You had never heard of that concept before? Please try to Google that. There are a lot of articles about it. I don't know if I can explain it well, but in this world, it is very violent way to categorize people, but there are two tendencies for the personalities or mindset. One is the people who tend to ask, and one is the people who tend to guess. And in my understanding, in the US, it is very much recommended to go into the ask culture. So, can you help me? Is the ask culture. I'm having a difficult time. Is the guess culture. I am asking probably the same thing, but ask culture has to be quite direct, even honest for that matter, and guess culture is indirect. It is guessing, assuming, imagining what it is happening is the key to understand the conversation or even communicate. And it's really troublesome if you are an ask person, and if your friend is a guess person, and without knowing that they're different, that can be quite tragic. It can be quite difficult. But the Japanese culture often is introduced as the collectivism, which is very true. It's really not the individualism. But one concept we have to understand that is that there is always expectation, and those expectation comes before pretty much anything. It's not even common sense, it's expectation, and expectation comes before the rules or even the law, like, legal system. And if one does not follow that expectation, that person will be outside of that community. And without that community, one does not really survive. So it is quite important. Like, right now, it is recommended to have one's opinion. It is recommended to not to. Like, it's really difficult to go through the guess culture or expectation culture or expectations. So it's really not recommended. And I probably should get out of this too. And I am getting better, because with that expectation, I cannot live in the US. But my point is, like, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, when the Japanese people developed Sashiko, it was there. And we cannot, I don't want to ignore that. But I don't think many Sashiko teachers, or even anybody who are sort of speaking up about Sashiko, does not even know about this. It's okay to not to know, but it's something to consider, something to learn more. Does the other person also need to guess what is needed? If you say, I'm having a difficult time, can I say, what can I help you? Or I'm supposed to guess at what you need and want. That's the level, Susan, that's a really good question. That's the level. That's the level of the guess culture. You have to guess if the person who is saying that I am having a difficult time is asking you to help. If you guess correctly that the person is implying that he or she needs help, then you probably would help her or him without saying that. At the same time, you will guess if that person is just saying that to complain or to make it easier. So each phrase comes with the guessing, imagination, and it works well, though. This sounds crazy, right? Like, there's no answers, there's no how can I say, there's no direct communication. So one does not know what they want. But they communicate well. So they don't really need word at some point, because they can kind of live with just guessing. Are they cues if you grow up with guess culture? Yes. So there are lots of cues. In fact, cues are everything. You have to be there to get that cues, and it's really natural for us to get it. Of course, the words are one cues, but even facial expression or muscle movement and everything is kind of the cues. And that is why it is almost impossible to get it right. If we are living, like, if I am visiting somebody's expectation, it's almost impossible to understand the whole cue. And it is very difficult to get the expectation there. So they do not expect the foreigners like me to. They do not expect not foreigners, I'm sorry. They don't expect outsider to understand all the cues, but they expect the individual to understand it when they want to get in that community. And I'm from there. I was raised in that. Like, Sashiko culture itself is one thing, but I think my strength is there. This one. The guest culture is quite big strength I have. I have never heard of it. Wow, many people have not heard about that. Please do enjoy. It's pretty fun. Ask and guess. It's on the today's topic. Ask culture and guess culture. Not a guest culture. It's pretty fun. And correct me if I'm wrong. In the US, as long as I kind of follow my daughter's education, even the system itself, education and system itself, encourage them to be ask person. They have to, not have to, they recommend us to be in the, oi! What the, are you okay? Are you okay, Sakura? That was an intense sneeze. Wow. Are you okay, Sakura? That was scary. The US culture tried to encourage us to follow the ask culture. So having a question is actually recommended because that shows the interest, that shows the respect, and that is the sign of engagement. And that honesty, like telling the teachers that they do not know, they do not understand, is quite a good thing because that encourages the discussion, communication, and that's how it is. But I don't, in Japan, more like asking is not really always recommended. We are expected to guess or imagine if it is okay to ask. Is it too basic question to ask? Am I taking too much time of the teachers to answer this question? We kind of have to have the guess process to ask one question. I don't know about it right now in Japan, but that's quite normal for us. If you care about somebody's feeling, it's probably, if you don't like conflict, if you care about somebody's feeling, if you read too much atmosphere with somebody's feeling, then you're probably the guest culture people. And those guest culture people tend to be kind of quiet because they don't have to speak up. And that some people feel comfortable in that guest culture, even in the US, and they probably go through a difficult time in the US system because it is almost mandatory to speak up if you have a question. You cannot expect others to guess what you're thinking. That's why I decided to speak up in this language. At the same time, if you are the ask person in Japan, probably Japanese society is a little difficult to be. I don't know about right now, but it's probably difficult. It's not a problem, it's definitely difficult. Because there are words that he or she does not read the atmosphere. Like, 空気が読めない means like they don't guess enough to be in the conversation. And if you are a foreigner, that's probably, like, if you don't look like Japanese, it's probably fine, because they guess that you are the outsider. But if I do that as the same, like, looking Japanese, then they will not guess that I'm different. They will guess that I'm the same person, same cultural person. As the result, the conversation will be quite difficult. So the first layer is to understand that there are, like, those two categories. I mean, there are tons of categories, but in big categories, ask and guess. And we are recommended to go into the ask culture right now in the US in English. And many people interpret Sashiko based on the ask culture. In fact, though, Sashiko was developed in the guess culture. And as the result, there are a little bit of filtration or interpretation. I don't think the teachers are meaning bad to make the misinterpretation. They simply just don't know this. I mean, they might know as the theory, but without being in Japan for 10 years or 20, like, unless one is inside of that community, this cannot be understood. Nobody can understand it as long as they are part of the community. In order to be part of the community, they have to speak the language. So staying in Japan for 5 years is not probably gonna do it. They have to be there for like 10 years, 20 years. Having a family is a very good way to do that. If one decided to stay in Japan married to somebody Japanese, that is a very good way to, like, start working in a Japanese company with Japanese people without English. Then probably this cultural difference is more natural to them. And in fact, I would like to learn from them too. There must be a lot of there must be a lot of people opposite of me, Western people who are living in Japan, who knows both cultures I do. But I keep mentioning about them, but I have a civil American friend who speaks Japanese pretty well, and I sometimes ask their opinion, and they keep saying, like, you don't ask me, like, I'm not qualified to share my opinions. Or don't ask me. That was their guest communication that I shouldn't be asking, because their interpretation is different, and probably they guess that it's wrong. I don't think it's wrong, but what they say is that the more they know about Japanese culture, the less they think they know about it. And I kind of understand that too. So this difference is quite important to understand. Like, but at the same time, in order to enjoy Sashiko, don't get me wrong. In order to enjoy Sashiko itself, don't worry about this. I don't even understand what Sashiko is fully, so I'm not expecting anybody to understand what Sashiko is fully. If somebody is saying I know everything about Sashiko, that's a huge lie. No Japanese knows the full picture of Sashiko, and why one non-Japanese can understand the whole picture of Sashiko. It's impossible to do it. But I like to make sure that I can communicate as much as I can, and this is quite important. Description in English. It's not quite exact, but it's close. I used to say that instead of guess culture, ask culture, I often said that read between lines, or read what is not written. So, and also I often mention about imagination. but those are connected to, like, linked to the guest culture. It's not, again, it's not exactly the same, but I think it's quite similar. Sorry, Susan, I completely skipped that. The travel writer Pico Liar lives in Japan, and he is married to a Japanese woman. He said every conversation with his wife is like trying to understand Zenko. Yeah. Well, yeah. So many people think that my account, the Sashiko Story account, Instagram account, or anything I write, they think that I am philosophical, or my answers are very like philosophy. I am not at all. I am just being natural in my culture. Direct and indirect is quite similar, but not exactly the same again. There's a little different nuance. So many people come to this account, this channel, this account for the answer, right? They are here to ask the question, but I don't have the answer. I have my guess, and I want them to guess what I have as a guess. But if I tell that to them, then they think either I am mean or I am being philosophical. No, I'm just don't have what they want. And who gets popular in this society? The people who can offer that answer, either if it's right or wrong, or it's even on the topic or not. The people or person who can offer those answers get popularity. Because it's easy. One thing good about Ask Culture is it's very speedy. It can be done, it's efficient for that matter. I don't think AI can do the guest culture yet. They might be able to do it soon, but at this moment, I have to type the question to the AI. AI doesn't come to me and guess what I'm wondering. So I don't think it's gonna be the near future. But it is very difficult. Wait, I have to explain that, but when I'm in Japan, it's really natural to me. And I'm pretty sure many of the Sashiko practitioners I have in Japan, or Sashiko friends in Japan, are the guest culture people. They don't really realize that difference much as you don't. But I'm pretty sure that they are the guest culture side. AI won't be able to guess culture. It cannot do the context. Yeah, it cannot do context. So yes. Yet. I'm kind of big believer of AI, so like not many people. What we do right now, hand stitching, is something that AI cannot take over. Many people think like that, and hand stitching, so it's human's hand, so they value what we do. At the same time, I have a pretty strong faith in the AI, though. Do I like it or not? I think I like it. I like smart people. No, I'm sorry, that's a wrong statement. They don't have to be smart. I like people who think. I like people who use their brain. I like who guess, imagine. I like that. I feel very comfortable with that. And another English word that I can probably use is the emotional intelligence. This might be more familiar. Those who has a high intelligence, high IQ. Like instead of having high IQ, EQ is EQ, emotional intelligence, is one measurement, one who can do the guessing. So I am not really, I don't have a high IQ, but I think I have a very high EQ. So sometimes I can be like the fortune teller because I can read. I don't do the math. Like I'm not really, engineer type person, but I think I can read a lot of things that not many people do. But yeah, there are a lot of different things, and I just wanted to mention about the guess culture and ask culture today, because acknowledging that there's difference, that might help us to understand what Sashiko is. It will help me to communicate what Sashiko is by understanding the ask culture, by understanding what you or the other people in the US are thinking. I'm getting better at that. I have struggles, but I think I'm getting better. And the Domestica course is one outcome of that. I am answering the questions to the question that I will get. So I'm not asking you to guess in the course. But Sashiko itself is full of guess culture. So, if you are interested, please Google. I hope my explanation was not bad. If you find something wrong, if you find something incorrect, please let me know. I'm not a specialist in this. I just happen to know about it because I had a difficult time to adjust in the US. Hello, Tama-san. But it's fun. Japanese culture is quite unique because of this too. The university was very difficult for me because of this. Let's say I have a question to the professor, right? I always worry if my question is so silly. Because I imagine that I guess my question is not good enough because of my English. So I expected myself to have better question based on the context of the lecture or the class. But I felt like my question was based on the English. I did not get it. So I was very worried, and I sometimes decided not to go or not even speak up in the class. So for me, ask is very, very, very difficult. So when I say, well, not anymore. After 10 years of living in the US, I know what I have to do. But every time I write, please spread this word, please help me out. Like, that's a little, not a pain, but something is not right when I do that. That's why we say there are no stupid questions. Yes, I understand that. But in guess culture, there are a stupid question. Who decide if it's stupid or not? The people who guess decide if it's stupid or not. It's not the people who answer the question. It's the people who ask the question decide if there are any good or bad questions. It is true that there's no, bad questions. But that's really based on the ask culture. In the guess culture, asking a question itself is already the target of guessing. And again, like, it's not a matter of good or bad. Please don't, get me wrong that ask is better or the guess is better. It's just different. And it is extremely difficult to communicate in the deep level, not this surface level. In the deep level when we have a different culture, so we have to know that we are from which side. Like, superficial is fine. If it's superficial, if it's like just friend-wise, then we don't have to really focus on that. But if we can talk about cultural things, and if we're gonna teach, then that is a lots of that level, not like I'm not gonna expect that when we go out to have a dinner or something. But when let's say when I'm gonna do some Sashiko project together with both names on. Well, let's say if I'm gonna write a book about Sashiko together, that person has to be the guest culture person, because I cannot work with somebody ask culture that intense. I can work, but not that intense. It's a lot of pressure to be in the guest culture, or at least to me, probably it's not if. If you are not from the guest culture, it is a lot to be in the guest culture. But for those who are in the guest culture, like me, being in the ask culture is a lot more difficult. Because you have to be direct. You have to speak up. You have to ask. You have to do it. It took 6 years for me to speak up like this. 6 years. 6 years. With a lot, like, many people got upset with me because I don't speak up. So you have to do things. You have to do something. You gotta do something. Your voice is very important. You have to do something. Well, the whole world should guess what I'm doing. I'm Japanese and I'm, sharing Sashiko, so I hope the world is gonna guess that what I'm saying is somewhat, important. And some of the reactions are based on the guest culture. But look where the world is right now. So when I say I would like to deliver the message, that's the stories behind it. If you're from ask culture, you may wonder, like, what is that supposed to mean? Like, what does he mean by delivering the message? I get your message. What does it, mean to be delivered? I keep saying that there's a big difference between sharing and delivering. And some people don't understand the difference. Like, sharing means delivering. I got your message. Right now, I'm reading you share the story. So I received it. It's delivered. But in my culture, sharing is like sharing and delivering is sharing is more like a guest culture. I am sharing my stories, so ... Delivering means I have to, not have to, but I would like to deliver it to your place. It's fascinating. It is. This guest culture, ask culture, can be a huge factor for the divorce. So be careful. If you are gonna, marry to Japanese or, somebody from outside of the culture, make sure to find somebody who has the same culture on this. My wife is the guest cultured person. Although she's Jewish and Western person, she is the guest culture, which is kind of miracle for that. Well, Jewish culture has similar things too. And she's not American born Jewish, so anyway. If the marriage has difference in this, it's gonna be chaotic. I keep making fun of this, Japanese family setting, but in Japanese family, like normal family setting, they don't talk much. I mean, they do have some conversations, but in many traditional, not the current, not the contemporary, not the modern family, but like let's say 30 years ago, when I was a child, when husbands say "oi," it can be meaning a lot of things. The wife or a child had to guess what he meant. "Oi," just one sentence. And in the ask culture, the father has to ask, "Give me the newspaper, give me the tea. I need hot tea, I need that." They don't have to probably put "please" because he was the father. But in the guess culture, that is also the target of guessing. So if he says "oi" in the morning, that means that could be newspaper or the tea before the breakfast or after the breakfast. Depends on what he is looking at. If he's in front of the TV and say "oi," that means that he needs a remote, probably. And if he says "oi" after dinner, it could be the bath time or beer, whatever it is. And like by explaining that, that's a lot of guessing, but that became like a natural routine, and that's what I meant by expectations. So the wife expects the husband. I'm sorry for this gender thing. I'm just using the husband wife because Japan is one horrible country for that. Genderism, gender issues. 30 years ago, that was the kind of main case. I'm not encouraging that. But that's the expectation. I have no friends, no single friend who asks me to take off my shoes when I get into his house or her house. Why? It's a guess culture as well as it's the expectation. It started as the guess, but it became like an expectation and social norm. Everybody has to follow that. What happens if they guess wrong, or does the father indicate it somehow? This "oi" means beer or "oi" means bath? He will make a little, the father will make a little uncomfortable face, and then wife will guess that was not what he was asking or what he was guessing, what he was requiring. A mistake itself is not a bad thing in the guess culture. It's not a fatal. Because guess culture, people in the guess culture do not like the direct communication. So it is okay to misguess it, because it does not settle until the guess is fulfilled. Oh my gosh, why am I from that culture? Wow. Wow, the more I explain, the shittier it is. I'm sorry, the shittier means like I keep saying it's not a good or bad. It's just how, well, I am saying it's good or bad, but it's not the matter of good or bad. I just feel so, wow. I don't want to say shitty, but how do I explain my feeling right now? But yeah, that's the whole about Sashiko culture. So now can you guess how idiotic the question, what is the right size of the Sashiko stitching? Like they're asking for the answers. They're not guessing anything, but they're asking for the answers. I do have my answers for that. But if one can answer that question without a story, then that's a huge lie. It's good you understand it since your daughter is growing up. Yes, yes. So the good thing about my experience is that I came to the US to study first. I came to the US for the university, right? For the bachelor degree. In order to graduate, guest culture does not do well. So, I mean, you have to kind of, as much as I make fun of the, I did not study at all, I got a degree from drinking, which is not really that, wrong, but one has to study somehow. Half centimeter is pretty big. But that's what we. Yep. Susan, you got it. That's the right size. Yeah, I'm happy that you asked me the question, but sometimes please laugh at my interaction when you find me getting a little uncomfortable when people ask me a lot of questions, especially on the Instagram. My dad doesn't say oi, but my mom says ne. That always gets moms to curse. Yeah, it can go vice versa. Ne. Ne is a kind of scary word from family member. Just back from Japan, absolutely loved it. Welcome back, and then I'm glad you had fun with Japan. Susan, you don't have to remember that. There's no such a thing as the right size. Okay, I will finish the live streaming after this much thread. Something is wrong with my thread, not a thread, a throat today, so I will just take a little safe side. I hope that see, like some voice is a little weird. I hope today's live session about guest culture, ask culture, and guest culture was somewhat helpful to understand the difference. Again, it's impossible to fully understand what guest culture is without being in that guest culture. So don't worry about it too much. I'm just saying that there's so many answers about Sashiko without understanding what guest culture is like. So I hope that this will help a little bit. It's not me who starts saying this guest culture and ask culture. So there are a lot of, I don't know about books, but there are a lot. But Lily-san said there were books. There are a lot of articles online, so please try to read that. You may get some. It's written by the Western people when you find it in English, so it might not be exactly what I'm saying today, unless it's not a fatal mistake. Make a laugh about it. But this ask culture, guess culture, and the guessing part is going to lead us to the expectation, and that expectation is the key to understand what Sashiko is. Cool. Oh, Susan, I'm so happy to hear that you're. Yep. Yep. The person, that's why Sashiko is gonna survive. If a Western person who is not here right now with me, but is there over, is who exists over the screen, can say that, that's a good thing. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Yep, Japan trip indeed. I have to go back. Well, I don't know if I like. I received several questions if I'm planning to organize the next Japan tour next year. Give me a little time to think. I mean, I would love to redo it, but I am now finally kind of embracing the memory of a Japan trip. I became extremely busy because of the domestic course right after I came from Japan tour, so I didn't have that much time to reflect. So I am in the process of doing that. So I will update. I'll keep you updated. If I can't find Sashiko thread, what size Sashiko? There's no size. It is not about size for the thread, right? Thread. And I understand that it's difficult to get it in the South, Central America, South America. But there's no size. Google, not a Google. Go to my website, Upcycle Stitches, and there's a article about Sashiko thread. But unfortunately, there's no size. It's not about size. That's why it's kind of difficult. But again, this question has a very specific answer that I can give. Or the person who is asked here, right now Leo is asking, I know what Leo wants to hear. I know why he or she is asking this question. Because she wants to have a thickness, right? Like the size of the thread. And I can just measure the thickness here. But that's not gonna explain what Sashiko, like that will ruin the purpose of Sashiko that I'm sharing. So I don't. And there's no sizing. Because sizing is not really important. So the recommendation is our thread, but if it's international, it's kind of difficult. But I don't change this. Like if I compromise it, then what's the point of me sharing that? So again, there's no size. Many people say that this size is good or that size is good because that's the culture of ask. One ask and the other people answer the question. That's what is going on Facebook or social media. One asks the question, the other answer the questions without really understanding the stories. That's why they keep saying like rice grain size or Those are not wrong. Those are not the wrong answers. I mean, there might be some wrong answers, but those are not the wrong answers. But that's not enough. Hopefully I'll be able to go to Future Japan Sashiko trip. Yeah, that'd be great. I'm glad to have you, Jade. You're gonna go there. You're gonna go there in October. Wow, that's awesome. This October? That's almost. It's right there, right? Right? Today is. Oh my gosh! It's almost end of the May. Ay. Okay, I will finish this live streaming very soon. If you're watching this as the archive, please let me. If you're watching this archive, if you're watching this as an archive, and if you have any questions, please leave the comment. I can try to bring the question to the next live streaming. And anything else that I can share today? I'm glad that you had fun in Japan and with Keiko Kandera. I wish I were there too, though. But yeah, it's gonna be very small group again. If I were gonna do it next year, it's gonna be very small group. I will ask again those who joined this year's Japan tour what can be improved. There are several things that I can improve significantly. Small things that I can improve for sure, but there are a few things that I have to change it, which is, which is important. Okay. Thank you so much for watching this Sashiko live streaming on Thursday night. I hope you will have a good night. And I do have a Sashiko Gathering on the on the Memorials Day on 29th. I have a gathering, so if you'd like to join that, please check the description area. If you are on the Patreon or if you're on the current online class, you should be receiving an update. So check the email or the post. Otherwise, please check the description. And okay, that's about it. Thank you so much for coming, and I will see you next Thursday night. Have a good night. Bye bye.